All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the PatternFly community meeting for December 1st. We have a handful of updates today from the various teams that work on the various parts of PatternFly. I don't think this will be too packed of an agenda, but you never know. So hopefully we'll have time for questions at the end. If you have any during presentations and you don't want to lose them, feel free to put them in the chat. The recording of this will be posted to the PatternFly YouTube channel and sent out as soon as I get it all uploaded and configured. All right, so today we are going to start with an update from the content team and Alana.
Thanks, Nicole. Good morning, everybody. Happy December. I'm just going to share my screen really quickly. Can everybody see?
Yep.
Awesome. So as this is the last PatternFly community meeting for the 2020 calendar year, we thought it would be appropriate to kind of do a PatternFly content year in review to just walk through the major strides we've made and the major accomplishments we've all made together along the way. So this year we set out with the goal of our content more accessible, consistent, readable, impactful, and human. And if you'll notice, these are similar goals that we have with our designs. So to make content accessible, we make it available and usable for all of our readers. To make it consistent, we align it with our best practices and style guidelines. To make it readable, we format and structure for better understanding. To make it impactful, we make sure that we're sharing relevant, resonant, and empowering content. And to make it human, we drive down into what our community is like and what our community values are and channel that into our content itself. So I've broken down this presentation into some key content stride areas, and I want to start with our documentation. So we've elevated how we document our designs, and we've done this through three main goals and avenues. We made our design documentation more digestible. So from rewriting component definitions to restructuring our pages, we streamlined how we write component guidelines to support a more consistent and digestible learning experience. So now when designers or developers want to get information about our components, they'll know where to look on the page for certain tidbits so they're not kind of sifting through a long document with no direction. We also made our release notes more readable with the addition of a new GitHub wiki document that condenses our PatternFly enhancements, features, and updates into a scannable document. So you've probably noticed on our Twitter and our email we've been promoting this wiki, and one comes out with every release. We've also made our PatternFly resources on our website more navigable. So we added nested navigation to our website and tables of contents to PatternFly pages so that you can quickly find the content you need and skip sifting through what you don't. And we've also elevated how we write about our designs too. So we added our UX Writing Content Style Guide, which is our evergreen, ever-growing resource to guide teams as they write clear, accessible, and useful microcopy with UX writing best practices in mind. We also added a writing design guidelines guidance that provides specific writing style and formatting guidelines for writing resources for PatternFly components themselves. This means that going forward, that work we did to streamline our component guidelines will happen naturally with guideline creation. And we also added medium style guidelines. This is a resource for people who are blogging about PatternFly and PatternFly components to write, style, and format long-form articles that align and comply with all of our PatternFly content recommendations. Our next content stride area is blogging. So we've branded our PatternFly Medium experience, and we've done this through a variety of steps throughout the summer and the fall. So the main components in the summer included our pattern past migration, where we migrated old WordPress articles from our WordPress platform to our Medium platform under the Pattern Past campaign. So this involved auditing articles for relevance to current PatternFly versions and making sure that all the information in it, if it wasn't up to date, was marked as such. And this also included a cute Pattern Past logo that has a very vintage 70s hoodie kind of vibe. The next step was to add new boilerplate copy and a new divider to our articles themselves. So we updated our boilerplate copy to have more of a CTA for writing with us and being a part of our journey. And we also added a branded divider that divides the featured image from the body content and the body content from the boilerplate copy to give more of a branded PatternFly feel. And the last step to brand our PatternFly Medium experience was to add submission guidelines in July. So this resource welcomes new and continuing writers to contribute articles that are styled in accordance to our PatternFly content style guide and Medium-tailored formatting guidelines. So elements like component names, image alt text, titles, and code blocks all appear the same across all of our blog posts. And from branding our experience and elevating our online presence, we have metrics to show for it. So this year, we've gained 150 followers on Medium, 12 curations, and 1 homepage feature. And the homepage feature is part of Medium's new distribution policy. So instead of curating and putting articles behind a paywall, we actually get featured and distributed so that our articles remain free for everybody at all times, even when they're selected by editors. We have 21 writers and counting. We've published 58 stories so far, and we migrated 41 articles from our WordPress blog to our Medium blog. We write about 4 stories per month, and we get about 1,130 views per month and an average of 1,000 minutes read per month. And one of our biggest content strides from Medium is that our thought leadership content has sparked online conversations on platforms like Twitter, LinkedIn, and other online networks. So for Twitter, we're getting retweets, mentions, our articles are getting quoted, and we're getting comments and engagements from flyers and other UXers alike. So our PatternFly content and our PatternFly thought leadership is truly expanding beyond just our PatternFly community. On LinkedIn, we're also receiving article quotes, reposts, and curations in other article collections. And we're getting shoutouts from industry experts like Microsoft's lead of diversity and inclusion. And on other networks, we're starting conversations too. UX Writing Hub lists PatternFly as a design system resource, and when any of us attend seminars or online classes, we're mentioning PatternFly to get our name out there. And speaking of getting our name out there, we've made significant strides in social media too. So earlier in May, we brought a new social media strategy to life, and this strategy had 3 main objectives: to educate, enrich, and inspire our current and future followers. To educate, we provide industry-relevant thought leadership, best practices, stories, and insights. To enrich, we define and uphold what it means to be a best-in-class design system and talk about it by engaging with a wide range of UX and open-source content. And to inspire, we empower flyers not only to share their own stories, expertise, and experiences, but to respond to and build off of each other's too. And we also have numbers to show for that. This week, we just passed 900 followers for our Twitter community. We get about 12,000 impressions per month and an average of 321 profile visits per month. We average about 2% for our engagement rate, with 15 retweets per month and about 10 replies per month. And don't be fooled, these numbers might seem small, but they are so colossal when you think about where we started and where we're heading. To have a consistent engagement rate and consistent retweets and replies is huge for us. And speaking of things that are ready to celebrate, we have some content stride milestones to look at for 2020. So earlier this summer, we got the PatternFly handle on Twitter. So some of you might remember that we used to be PatternFly_des, and we don't have that pesky des at the end anymore. So now not only are we more findable and more mentionable, but our PatternFly handle actually embodies the sleek styling that PatternFly has itself. And speaking of our Twitter community, we're now over 900 strong. So this online community is ever growing, and we're so excited to see where this journey leads and sharing that path with you. And we have a birthday to celebrate. PatternFly Medium is turning 1. So last December, we started blogging on Medium, and we've gained over 150 followers along the way, and we're so excited to keep building out that content and growing our content community with you. And one of the things that gets me most excited about what we've done this year is the collaborative efforts we've seen across PatternFly content. So we've been sharing what I like to call pieces of the pattern pie. Pun totally intended. So we're using PatternFly to unify, streamline, and elevate user experiences not only across Red Hat's portfolio, but in product conversations across the web. But for Red Hat specifically, this means using PatternFly to provide microcopy reviews and design reviews in products like Red Hat Data Grid, Red Hat OpenShift, and other content requests for other products and projects. And we're collaborating to establish the content best practices that guide that feedback. And we're doing this in a number of ways, by attending UX Writing Thought Leadership seminars, contributing to collaborative meetings and language focus groups, melding expertise from multiple avenues to update and improve resources like our Writing for All audience and numerics page, and building new content guidance like our Units and Symbols page, which is always based on real research and real feedback from our community. And something else to celebrate too is how all of our work has been guided by our flyer fundamentals. So last week we released an article that was Thanksgiving themed about what our community has accomplished with our flyer fundamentals at our core. And we shared what PatternFly is like, what our PatternFly personality is, what our community is like, and what that means to flyers like you. So I'll throw the link in the chat after the presentation as well. But this story highlights what it means to be a flyer and how flyers use that to empower and enrich their own work. So here's to celebrating today and taking on tomorrow. This year has brought so many exciting strides, and we are thrilled to keep continuing them with you. The new year awaits, and we're so excited to push farther and think more broadly and grow our content alongside our work. And this content presentation would not be complete without me inviting you to follow along with our journey. So you can follow us on Medium at medium.com/patternfly and follow us on Twitter at patternfly, no des. Thank you, everyone. I hope you have a great rest of your year, and I look forward to seeing you in 2021.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Lots of exciting updates. And I'm personally someone who's active on Twitter, and I have definitely enjoyed engaging with PatternFly on Twitter and promoting it. So I definitely encourage anyone who's curious or enthusiastic about such things to participate. All right, next we have update from design. I think Matt's gonna take it away first.
Okay, thanks, Nicole. I'm gonna share out. This should be just a fairly quick update to just kind of bring everybody up to date on things that the design team is currently working on. I did want to highlight, what we're currently doing with exploring adding a dark theme to PatternFly. This design effort is primarily being led by Michael Saladonia and Marie Doruskova, with the goal of introducing, probably at some point next year, a theming layer and a dark theme to PatternFly. There is an epic on GitHub that details out some of the design issues that we're currently working on and some of the elements that we needed to address for theming. Michael, Marie, myself, and Michael Coker have been meeting weekly to prototype some of these things live. So I do expect that in the hopefully in the near future, we'll be able to do a more detailed presentation of the work that we're doing, probably in the context of a future PatternFly design share meeting. Just to list out some of the other things that we're working on. Mary Shackshover has been working on some label demo designs that will be actually presented at tomorrow's PatternFly design share that basically looks at placing labels and label groups in context. Michael and Bridget have been working on refining design concepts for topology view. Margot and Gina working on defining some interactive demos for common filters that are used within the toolbar, also adding item counts to select menus, exploring more flexible list variants. So right now we support basic ordered and unordered list tags in content, but we've had a couple different requests for more flexibility there in styling, so we can get beyond just the basics, sort of numbered and bulleted lists. And then also Gina and Michael have been exploring adding a secondary horizontal navigation. Currently we have a primary navigation that can live in the masthead, but we've had a couple of requests for something that's more like a secondary horizontal nav that would complement what we currently offer as that we call a tertiary nav, which is more like tabbed navigation. So again, the issues are all linked here. Feel free to follow these on GitHub or to add comments or ideas that you may have, and you could always visit the PatternFly design workspace to see our complete design backlog. Any questions on anything there? Okay, if not, I think Margot, I think you're gonna.
Yes.
Hi,
everyone. So I just wanted to give some updates on our design guidelines on the PatternFly website. Some of the more bigger additions are some new guidelines for the drop-down component and the menu component. And these kind of go hand in hand and hopefully will help clarify the differences between the components themselves, how they work together, and also how they differ from the select list component. So we're really excited about that. And thanks, Matt, for those updates. We also have some form control additions and then additions to the label and label group guidelines. So just added more guidelines on how to use those and what they are exactly. And then some more notable additions are also some guidance on the extra small empty state that was just added to PatternFly as a component. So we just added some examples on how to use those and what the best use cases are for it. And then finally, a lot of great UX writing additions from Alana and Abby from the content team that Alana kind of went over earlier, but really recommend everybody look at those updates because they're really great, really informative, and really help with creating good content on our designs. So that's about it. I guess I'll hand it off to Marie for design.
Thank you. Okay, so hey everyone, I would like to share some updates in our library and a template. The first is a day picker that has been added to a symbol library, and you can customize the data in a calendar and a state for each day. The next is updated splitter that you can use, for example, in a notification drawer or just drawer. You can create a layout with panels that can be resized, or you can just resize a drawer with a splitter component. Also, we've added some new icons for a new process, not started, and missing resources. You can see it below the calendar. And the last but not least is a marketing card with larger spacing. I think it's 32 pixels padding inside of a card and 24 pixels for text, which is much larger than in a normal card. So it's called marketing card, not just like a normal card. So if you want to see these new additions in a library, just update the library in Sketch. And that's all for me. Thank you so much.
Okay. I think back to you, Nicole. Thank you, Margot and Marie.
Awesome. Yes, thank you very much. Next, we're going to move to the update from PatternFly Core. I think that's Michael.
Thanks, Nicole. Let's see. Okay, great. So up first, our basic gallery layout has gotten a pretty cool enhancement, and it's the ability to change the minimum width of the items inside of the gallery. So you can customize that to be something other than the fixed value that it was before. So that's currently live, and a sneak peek, we also introduced the ability to specify the max width of that cell too, so you get a min-max kind of customization. But the max width is coming in our next update, so I'm sure I'll mention it then too. In the newish menu component, we've added a drill down variation, which is pretty cool. It's basically a way to include submenus in the menu in a way that's different than like the flyouts flyout menus that are currently in the component. And you can see kind of the interaction here where you are able to drill down into infinitely nestable submenus with navigation elements at the top to traverse back up the tree. The table component got a really great update, and that's to support favorites. So here are a couple of examples. The top example is with the table supporting sorting by favorite status. And then the bottom example is just a standard table where items are simply favorable. The description list got another great update, and this is to support the auto-fit CSS grid algorithm. And so auto-fit is supported with min and max widths and will try and place as many items on a row as it can, and wrap to separate rows when there's no space available left based off of the min and max width definitions. The drawer got a really neat update, and this is to have a resizable panel alongside of this, the splitter component that we had previously that's used as the handle to be able to resize the drawer panel. The splitter component was removed as an individual component and moved into the drawer, as that was the only use case for the splitter. So to simplify things, that's now an element inside of the drawer component, and you can see it here attached to a panel, and you can attach it to any variation of the drawer layout or panel orientation, where panels on the left, right, the bottom. Our Popover got a cool update, and that's basically to allow custom layouts inside of it. The Popover was previously pretty static in that it had a static width assigned to it, and it had built-in spacing and padding just for the title and the body and all of that. You can now, if you have a full width layout that you want to put inside of the Popover, something that should extend to the edges of the Popover, you can now specify no padding, and that gives you the layout at the bottom where you could put something like a calendar component, which we'll get an update later about, or anything that would maybe a graph or something like that that would occupy the full width and height of the Popover. And also we added the ability to specify an auto width variation, which basically just resizes the Popover to fit the content inside of it instead of it being a fixed width. And then last, we've added some new utility classes. You'll find them in the documentation under text and background colors. And the text utilities allow you to manipulate font size, font weight, color, specify aggressive word wrapping or word break for super long strings with word break, break word. You can wrap content, no wrap. You can truncate long content with ellipsis. And then under the background color utility, we've got various colors that you can use as background colors. And all of those, just like our other utilities, map to PatternFly's global variable system. And so you get options for all of these utilities to use global variables as the value there. And that's it.
Awesome, thank you. All right, now we are moving to the React update, and I am going to start that. So let me pull up my demo. All right, so since our last community meeting, I helped to build the React component called a Duelist Selector. It works pretty much right out of the box for lists of strings or simple React nodes, and is keyboard accessible. We're still working on fine-tuning a few parts to make it completely voiceover accessible, but basically it allows you to pick one or more items from an available options list and move them over to a chosen options list. All of the text in the titles and in the status strings are customizable if you'd like them to be. All the buttons will work right out of the box. It also comes with an optional ability to search. That's fun. And it comes with the option to include some controls that the consumer can define. So this one sorts, the example sorts, and has a simple actions menu. And one of the interesting keyboard accessible options or features is that as you tab through and into the list, instead of having to tab through all the options, since that could be a really long list of options, and since a user might be trying to navigate a large page with a Duelist Selector on it, we wanted to make sure the tab didn't force you into the list if you didn't want to. So you can tab to the list, and you can use the up and down arrow keys to navigate the list itself, and then when you hit tab, it'll move off. And the same thing works. So if I select some options, I can tab to the action, I forget what these are called, but these buttons in the middle to select them. I can hit enter, I think. Oh, yep, there we go. It's just moving a little slow. And yeah, it lets me have the option to move the browser focus into the Duelist Selector lists or not. So that is, I think, an interesting feature of the Duelist Selector. There are future enhancements coming to this component. We're going to allow for tree view lists to be in the Duelist Selector and future enhancements to improve its voiceover interactions as well. So we can be on the lookout for that. And that's all for the Duelist Selector. I will and pass it off to Joachim.
Howdy. All right. Okay, I'll be talking just a little bit about the table. We've already had a table component, but that table component has always been a bit more, it's been less declarative and more implicit in the way that you consume it. To kind of create a more React way of creating tables, a more composable approach, we've added just that. So if you look at our examples, you still have all your traditional table examples, but then we've added a new section underneath it, which basically recreates all of those table examples using the more React way, composable approach. We've basically recreated the examples, most of the examples that exist for the traditional table with this composable approach, just to kind of make it easy if you wanted to transition to it, or if you just wanted to straight up start using the composable table components. This should be a pretty good starting point. So there's really no limitation in terms of the things you can do with the composable components. You still have sorting, you have header tooltips, everything you might already be accustomed to with the current table. So there's really nothing stopping you from either switching or just start using the composable table components. Just to kind of easily contrast the two, I'll just show one example. This is the basic example. So this is the traditional table. And if you look at the code, you have your array of columns, you have your array of rows, and then you feed that into the table component through the cells and the rows props. And then within the table component, there's very little in terms of things that are composed within it. Is you just have a table header and a table body, and then through the magic of context, it basically sends those rows and columns down into like different subcomponents within a table. But it's all very kind of hidden. It's like a configuration-based approach. You don't really know exactly what it's doing under the hood. So to kind of contrast that to the composable approach, here we have the same basic table example. Again, you've got your array of columns, your array of rows, but then really taking a composable React way approach. Instead of using the table component as the outermost component, we have a new table composable component, which also has a couple props. But then within it, it's very declarative. You have like a caption component, and then you have like your T head component. Within you have like a table row, which is for the header, and then within a table row you have multiple table header cells. So you just map over your data essentially, and all of the components have been named to kind of reflect what they would be rendered as in the DOM. So obviously this T-head is rendered as a T-head element. So the mental mapping there should be easy to map between the two. And then after your T-head section, you have your T-body section, and again you map over your data, and it's all up. So this TD component has a lot of props that allow you to specify whether you want sortability on it. Well, I guess not on the TD, that would be on the TH, but whether you want selectability on it, or if you want it to be a radio checkbox, or if you just want it to be a regular cell. So that's really up to you. Yeah, and that's that. Thank you.
All right, says Zack is next. And I see that you're on the list 2 different times. You can do both of your updates at the same time. You don't have to go in order of the agenda, Zack.
Wonderful. Okay. I assume everyone can see my screen. All right, so this is the story of Date Picker. So Date Picker, we started out using this library called Flat Picker, and Nicole did a good job of dealing with it, to put it nicely, and Michael did a good job of writing some styles so that their HTML looked more PatternFly-y, but there's still a lot of quirks with it. So my favorite is that if I double click the next month button, it highlights the first line of text, and then if I press the tab key after this, I can open 2 date pickers, and I can do all sorts of fun stuff. And also they use non-standard formatting strings and had their own internal parsing library and made validation difficult. So for example, these are all what they think the format specifier should be. They didn't follow like a string f time standard. They just said, hey, this is what the format string should be, and this is what you can do. Yeah, so we were a little frustrated working with this. Well, I was frustrated working with this. So we went and we made our own, and this is what it looks like so far. And well, we made our own calendar month, to be more specific. So we introduced a whole bunch of properties so you can control the way the calendar month's formatted. We added proper ARIA to it so that you can tab through it. That was something that you just couldn't do with Flat Picker. We didn't enable a way to tab through it, and I couldn't find an easy way, but you can tab through this one. And then we slapped it in a popover. We had to update some of our popover. Michael covered that earlier, but now that it's updated, you can properly type in here, and then open the picker if you want and pick other dates, and it's all nice and accessible. And yeah, we're working on a date range next, and that's coming soon. That's what this PR is for. It also fixes some other bugs. So we did originally include it in a separate package because it had a third-party Flat Picker dependency, and Flat Picker was, not trivial in size, but we've removed all the dependencies and now allow you, the consumer, to parse dates yourself. We use this standard ISO format, but you're free to pass your own date parse and date format functions that you want to see there. So we've made it much more customizable. And you can customize the popover, whatever you need. So that's coming soon. This release will move it to React Core, and it'll be an official component. Next is jump links. This is the core HTML, CSS for them. I believe subsections is coming soon, so you can have like a section underneath the section. But for now, I've created a demo that lets you, have it follow along as you scroll. The trickiest part with this is finding the element that actually scrolls. So if you're a developer implementing this, you're going to have to give a scrollable selector, and finding this guy can be a bit of a pain. But the way I do it is I inspect the page, and then I see the content I'm scrolling, so in this case, this paragraph, and I keep looking at the scroll top on the elements until I find one that's non-zero. So I scroll down the page. I'm like, hey, does this div have a scroll top? Does this div have a scroll top? And I kept going up until I found one. Maybe there's an easier way to find the element that's actually being scrolled that you need to pass as the scrollable selector, but that's the trick to getting this component to follow along. Yeah, that's it for me.
All right, the next React update comes from Katie.
Hello everyone, let me share my screen. There we go. All right, so first up for me, we've got the expandable card variant. So we have our typical card variant, but now we have it able to be expandable. So we have a header element that now has a toggle, and you can include any other kind of actions in the right hand as well, like a drop down or checkbox. If you toggle the toggle element, then you'll see now that the body and footer is revealed. This toggle is also accessible. You could just use space or enter to also toggle it. Then you can see below expandable with icon that you can still have an image for your header, but you still are required to use the header card element, because if I can scroll down here, this is what actually controls the expansion. You can see here that you can pass a bunch of accessible props to ARIA labeling to the toggle button itself for full customization there. And then anything that you want to be the expandable and collapsible element, you'll be putting inside this card expandable content. So anything that's inside this will get hidden when it's collapsed and then shown when it's expandable. You can see this way. Next up, we have the touch bin component. This is kind of an increment and decrement for a number. You have just two buttons, one that goes up and one that goes down. The default increment is just 1, but that's editable. You can also type into this input with different numbers, and it'll just type your input. These buttons are also, you can use space and enter to increment and decrement when you tab over them. Another feature is you can actually include a unit either before or after, and then that will kind of give more context to what you're incrementing on a page. And this is another example right here where I've edited the increment, which you can see for this one. You can label all of these whatever you want, and you can change the increment when you actually do these on plus, on minus functions to handle what happens when these buttons get clicked. The other thing you can do with TouchBin now is you can have a unit threshold or a unit and thresholds. You can give it a minimum and maximum value. So you can see this example's got a minimum of 0, so you can't actually decrement any further. The button's disabled. And if you go all the way up to 10, then this button becomes disabled. This also includes some validation, like if you try to type in like 40, it'll automatically put you at the max instead of a non-valid value. Or if you start typing like 5, but then text, it'll reset to the default state. You can disable the entire touch bin if you want it to be read-only as well. And you can customize the overall size or width of the touch bin. This is based on character length. So the first one is 1 character length, so you can go all the way up to 10. When you get further than that character length, it can cut off a little bit. So probably want to have some validation to make sure you're bounded within your range. This one shows 10 character width, and then the last two are both 5 character width and shows if you have a small number, it'll still have that same space. It's not going to shrink when you have a shorter number than the character length. And I think that wraps it up for TouchSpin. Finally, we have the action list. These are kind of groups of actions to be used in different like modals and forms and wizards, just kind of give you a own little composable component. You can see there's a couple different buttons here in a single action list. You can also include other kind of drop downs and action lists in this action. So you see there's a kebab drop down as well as these buttons. You have an option as well to have icons in your action list, and if you're only having icons in your action list, there's a property you can pass to adjust the spacing so they're not quite as far apart because the icons are going to be smaller. You can have multiple groups in an action list as well, so it's one component, but it's got multiple groups of spacing to give yourself some different options there. And here's an example as well of like what it might look like with a cancel button for some different forms and actions. So you've like for modals, forms, and data lists, you have save and cancel, whereas in wizards you might have a next, a back, and a cancel. And all of these buttons are using our button component, which is something you can pass in and customize yourself for like primary or inline or secondary and so on and so forth with the accessibility as well. And that's it for me.
Awesome, thanks. The last React update comes from Jenny.
All right. Okay, so one of the new components that was added between the last community meeting and this one was the menu component, which is something that Joachim and I collaborated on together. So we have many variants here of the menu component. So starting with the basic variant, and then we have icons, a flyout, which lets you nest a separate menu within another flyout menu. There's also filtering that lets you filter based on what's in the search input. So if you type in one, you see that filters based on what's in there. We have links, separators, titled groups, a little description menu option, also selectable actions, and these are also keyboard accessible, so if you press enter, it also selects based on that. Same with favorites, so we have selectable favorites that's also keyboard accessible, and option single select and option multi-select. And yeah, that's about it for the new menu component.
Awesome. Yeah, you can correct me, Jenny, but I think the menu component is the beginning kind of a large endeavor to consolidate, create more consistency on the way our multiple components that use menu-like features just create consistency, which from the point of view of the developer is a very exciting thing because our multiple implementations of menus and lists is tough to maintain. So thanks a ton, Jenny and Joachim, for that. All right, now we have an update from accessibility with Jessie.
Hey guys, so as you guys can tell, we've had a lot of new components, which has meant that our team has done an awesome job of considering accessibility as they've gone through all those different updates. But we've also wanted to make sure that we're continuing enhancements on our existing components for accessibility. And last meeting, I talked about how at a drop-down, we noticed with a customer, they were having difficulty in JAWS and that specific screen reader. A lot of times with our components, we focused on voiceover, just based on the availability with our team. But as we're expanding and doing better, we want to start making sure that we're accessible in all screen readers, ideally. And so we started working more on JAWS. And so one of the other things that we got from that customer is that the disabled items, he expected them to be announced and to be focusable when he was working with this in JAWS. So we created a PR recently to address that. And so now, as you can see, when I go to the disabled link or action, I can actually focus on this, and it is accessible now in VoiceOver, NVDA, and JAWS. That was a really cool update that we've allowed our disabled items to be more accessible in JAWS. But on that same vein, it made us consider where else could we improve with JAWS. And very similar components, we saw Options menu and Application Launcher also needed this update that they wanted to be accessible in JAWS as well. So we created this PR to do that, and how we can kind of see that without the screen reader really quickly is similar to how dropdown could click and then shift focus into the menu with just the keys. You can now do that with the Options menu. Or if I just click on it and go up, same thing. And also with the Applications Launcher. Which is a really cool update because being able to expand into all the different screen readers is a really unique, cool thing that we've been able to do so far. So we now have drop-down Applications Launcher and Options menu all accessible in JAWS. Also, as a very small update, but still very cool, is that we've added our skip to content to our documentation. We want to make sure our documentation is still accessible to users who are looking through our docs. And so we made sure that for keyboard users, when they are here, they can immediately jump down to the main content of the page and start going through. So yeah, it's been a lot of great updates for accessibility, both with JAWS. As you can see, we have a lot of good updates there, and then just making sure our documentation is also accessible, along with all of the cool updates we've had with our new components. That's it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jessie. The last update is going to be about PatternFly.org and the website. So I'm going to start by showing a few new features. All right. So a few of the things that have been added to the website since the last community meeting that are worth noting are a handful of new links to our GitHub repos, one of them being right on the front homepage on this call to action, and another on the masthead up here. So it'll be much easier for people to get to the repos when they're looking for it. Another thing that's new that is exciting is the developer resources. That is a section of the website now that contains a lot of new information. The accessibility guide is now there, information about the Red Hat font, trainings. So we have a handful of trainings built for how to use some of our how to get started with PatternFly, how to use some of our more complicated components like charts. So that's worth looking at. The upgrade guide is found under developer resources, the global CSS variables. Yeah, so take a look if that interests you for sure. Also, we've added the utilities section to the page, which includes a lot of information about how to add different utility classes to various components depending on unique needs. So things like accessible utilities, there's the background color utilities, things like that, text, spacing, display. So I think even Michael during the core update talked about some new utilities, and this is where you can find a lot of the documentation here to change things about the font and the wrapping. So yeah, all that is here now on top level of the PatternFly.org. And the last thing is our new community page. Gives a little bit more information about the whole PatternFly community in general, which that's this meeting. So take a look when you have a chance. It's got a lot of information about what we're doing and how you can be involved and be a more proactive and engaged part of the community. I think that's all I have for updates, but I think also Zack has an update for the PatternFly.org.
Yeah, one more little thing. So I just want to remind everyone that if you ever find an issue with our documentation, which you couldn't possibly ever do, it's perfect. I'm just kidding. But if you do, you can click this view source on GitHub, and that'll link you to where it is. So some of our docs on patternfly.org come from React, some come from Core, and some come from org. And you probably don't know which, and you probably don't care. You just want to report a problem. So there's always this link here, which will take you to the markdown file, and then when you open an issue, you're in the right place to open the issue. And you can even point to the file if you want, saying, like, oh, I think some text should change here. In other news, we made it easier slightly to navigate to the props. So we were using table captions for these before as the titles, but I made them H3s and then put them in the table of contents here, so you can easily see which components have which props. That's it. Oh, that was Joachim's idea. Credit to Joachim.
Sweet. Well, we finished with 8 minutes to spare. That might be a record since I've been running these meetings. If anyone has any questions, let us know. And I will slowly, if no one has any questions, wrap this up so that we can get back a few minutes today. The recording will be sent out along with the slides by the end of the day. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Have a great December. We won't have a meeting at the end of this month because it will be basically during our shutdown for the end of the year. I think that a lot of the groups in PatternFly are going to be focusing on some of the backlog of nice to have work that we've been longing to get our hands on while things slow down a little bit during the holiday season here. So we will not be having an update until probably the end of January. That's wild to say. That doesn't sound like it should be soon, but I guess it might be. Okay. All right. Have a good 2 months, everyone.
Thank you.